What's up guys, and welcome to a new video game review. It's been a while, but I got this, and I also have a Far Cry ranking that should be dropping in a couple of days. And Guardians of the Galaxy is the game that I'm talking about today. Now, this is a game that I had absolutely almost less than zero expectations for. I am one of those people that bought Marvel's Avengers last year and was extremely disappointed in it. I only got about 3 hours into the game and completely lost interest, and from what I've heard, things have not gotten better since. And I automatically assumed this game was from the same studio, was probably going to be along the same lines. Didn't see a whole lot of advertisement for it, honestly, so it almost felt like they were trying to bury this game. And then I started to see a lot of the early reviews come out, and people say that this was so much better than Avengers, and it was actually a big surprise, and it was a good throwback to just good old-fashioned single-player linear gameplay. And my curiosity got piqued. So I picked up this game, I just finished it last night, and now I'm here to tell you whether or not this is an underrated classic, or people might just be overhyping it a little bit.
Gardeners of the Galaxy?
What? No, Rocket. So I let Groot fill out the paperwork.
So starting off with the positives for Guardians of the Galaxy, I was a little worried going into this that I wasn't going to be able to latch onto or enjoy or identify with these video game versions of the Guardians of the Galaxy, because the only version that I know, and it's a version that I love, is like most of us. It's the ones from the live-action Guardians of the Galaxy movies. And they do a really good job here at not only with the characterizations, but the voice acting and the personalities of all the different members of the Guardians, and especially in a way to where it's close enough to the movies to where it doesn't feel so far removed or so foreign, but they definitely are unique, and they are going in directions that is different than what we've gotten from the cast of the movies. So from the beginning of this game, you're already put together. This is not like an origin story. You're already a group. You're already the Guardians of the Galaxy, and there's already some character dynamics established when you start the game, and it's just fun from then on, seeing how Rocket interacts with Groot, and seeing how Drax interacts with Gamora, and seeing how Star-Lord interacts with pretty much everybody. So I really did enjoy the versions of these characters that they brought us in the game. As you should expect from something that is translated in this property, there's a really nice balance of fun and goofy all throughout the game. A lot of the humor is very well placed. A lot of the back and forth between the characters, for the most part, is fun and enjoyable. Some of it's a little bit repetitive, especially kind of the in-game dialogue starts to repeat itself after a while. Even the situations that they get themselves into and how the Guardians themselves respond to gigantic dragons or women that run like this hell realm in the galaxy. Like, it's just a fun game. If you just want to shut your brain off and just have a goofy fun time, this is certainly a game that will fill that void.
No! We disrobe!
Keep your pants on.
Although it could be used as a distraction.
There's a pretty good overarching storyline here that's kind of carrying throughout the campaign of the game, to where you go to the Nova Corps after you kind of screw up in your initial mission, and Star-Lord, like you would expect any Captain Kirk style character like this, he has a relationship, a past relationship with one of the high-ranking officers in Nova Corps, finds out she's got a kid. There's a question of whether or not the kid is his, and then all of a sudden shit goes down in the Nova Corps, and this woman and this child go missing, and through the rest of the game it's about finding out what happened to them, figuring out how to stop what has happened to them, and kind of like a coming of age to a certain degree story for Star-Lord, because he's kind of an immature character, and him starting to fall into this parental role that he feels like he might have for this little girl. It's not the main focus of the story. There's a large portion of this story that just kind of goes off and does side mission stories where you're going to this planet to do this or this planet to get this objective, but the overarching story that kind of bookends the game I thought was pretty good, pretty entertaining. And finally, one thing that they absolutely had to nail after the movies created this whole thing with Guardians of the Galaxy and the awesome volume mix is that this has an awesome soundtrack, an awesome 80s soundtrack. There's a whole element in the gameplay to where you start to build up this meter as you're kicking ass, and you can eventually activate it, and it's called a huddle, to where all the Guardians come in and they give you an idea of how they feel in the moment, and then you have to choose one of two options to psych up your team. And if you do it correctly, everybody gets a power buff, and then it also plays an 80s song while you're kicking everybody's ass. So you might be doing this huge epic battle and listening to Wake Me Up Before You Go, and it's just like, it's so odd and so foreign to that situation, but it just fits perfectly with the tone of the game. And as somebody that loves 80s music, every time that there was something new there that I loved that was brought out into the soundtrack, I just got a big smile from ear to ear. Now moving on to my negatives, and unfortunately I don't quite agree with the overwhelming praise that this game has got. It's much better than I thought it was going to be, I will say that, and there is some people that I think will play this and really enjoy it start to finish. Unfortunately for me, this was a game of two halves. You have the first half to where you have like these story integrations of Star-Lord's past, to where he was a kid and you're walking around in his room and checking out all this 80s nostalgia stuff where he's got like Warriors posters and all of this that just gives you that feeling that you're legitimately watching a character that grew up in the 80s and was yanked out and thrown into this galactic battle. And even the interaction in the early missions of the Guardians, where like you're doing this little skeet shooting game with Rocket in the middle of a mission, where every time you see this little bug nest, you have to shoot one, and whoever has the highest score at the end of that mission, you get an achievement. And so stuff like that was so cool and so fresh and so exciting in the early hours of the game completely forgets about that. And right before the halfway point of this game, all the way to the end, it just becomes the most repetitive slog that I have played in a long time, to where it's just enter into this place, this new planet, you land, you go, you find something that's blocking a doorway, you use one of the Guardians and their powers and their skill set to move this doorway, you go through, and then waves of enemies come and you fight for 5-10 minutes. And then you go through another door and then waves of enemies come. And that was the gameplay style from the middle of the game all the way to the end credits. And it was to the point where after about 4 hours of that, I was like, is this game like, did it forget all the other things that it was doing and now it's just about combat? Because this is fucking repetitive. And it doesn't help that the fighting mechanics, that the battle mechanics of utilizing all the Guardians, and even just your simple shooting and doing the active reload thing from Gears of War as Star-Lord, if that wasn't so monotonous and so basic, it would make it a little bit more interesting. But because the battle sequences and because the gameplay mechanics regarding the fighting is not anything to write home about, it's a shame that suddenly in the middle of this game they decided that that's going to be the big focus and that's all you're going to do all the way through to the end. Because like I said, after about the 4th or 5th time that I just landed on a planet and then just going through waves of enemies to an endless degree, I was sick of playing this game, to the point where it almost felt like a sick joke. Because I hate when I feel that way about a game where I enjoyed it and then all of a sudden I'm like, God, just please end so I can move on to something else. And then get to the end, and after one of the biggest examples of just endless waves of enemies to defeat this final boss, you get a credit sequence, and then the game stops mid-credit sequence to give you another surprise boss fight that is yet again 3 waves of endless enemies. And I was just like, this is a fucking sick joke at this point. Like, it's almost like they're trolling me. Like, they knew I was going to be aggravated about this, so they just added extra shit to the last hour and a half of this game. And the shame of it is, I don't have anything else negative to say about this game. Everything else was good. Everything else was enjoyable. But because that side of this became the biggest portion of the gameplay of the 10 hours or so of this entire campaign, 3 or 4 hours in, I had seen the best that this game had to offer me. And then from then on, it was just kind of tirelessly trekking through enemies to get to the end credits. And it's a damn shame. If it would have just held on to that pace and that creativity and the way that they changed up certain things about the gameplay in the early 3 or 4 chapters, this could have been one of my top 5, top 6 games of the year. But that last half, man, just fucking dragged it all the way down to one of my more disappointing games of the year. So if you're a huge Guardians of the Galaxy fan, or if you were extremely disappointed with what the Avengers was last year and you want to see a better version of that, definitely give it a shot, but have lowered expectations from all of the early reviews, because this game does lose steam quickly. So what do you guys think of Guardians of the Galaxy? Were you a huge fan of this one? Were you a huge fan of the Avengers and didn't like this one as much? Let me know all of your thoughts down below on the Guardians of the Galaxy game, guys, and we will talk about it. Please like and share this video. Hit that subscribe button if you enjoyed this. I try to do a good amount of video game reviews, just depends on how frequent the releases are, but with the Xbox Series X coming to my door here in about a week or so, plus with all of the huge exclusives we're getting next year, if you like video game content, you're going to get a lot more of that throughout this year and next year. So please hit the subscribe button to not miss any of that. Thank you guys for watching as always, and remember, opinions are like assholes, but that doesn't mean that you have to be.